Hello, Michael. Welcome to Queerly Beloved.
Oh my God, it's so good to be here, Will, to connect with you and the listeners. We're in for a fun, juicy conversation today, no doubt.
Yes, juicy is one of my favorite
Yeah.
descriptors for these conversations. I'm glad you're already calling that in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're doing this. So, I'm going to start off with my famous first question, which is who are you, Michael? But tell me by describing the perfect drag avatar that describes that embodies that. And it's really like who you are in this moment, on this day, in this part of your life. Yeah, but use a drag
Yeah.
avatar, whatever that means to
Um,
you.
the Oh gosh. Okay, so Cuckoo Bananas, half Cuckoo Bananas and half my actual drag name, the one and only time that I did drag was Dusty Arroyo. And she's a little bit messy, she spills all over herself. She's got dust on her dress, and the wig is a little off center, and she's totally fine with that
Uh-huh.
because she kind of likes that. And the cuckoo bananas part of her is, hey, let's do this. We understand that life is messy, life is meant to be
Mm,
embraced, and especially the word crazy is a word that I
mm,
really embrace. And I feel that as us as gay men,
mm,
weird goes along with that. We were
mm,
told that we were different. We were told that we were weird as boys and young men.
mm,
We felt like outcasts. So, hey, I know I'm reclaiming that part of myself, that weird,
mm.
unusual, different part of myself. And why? How can we all reclaim that?
Love that. Yes. And for me, that piece of the word queer, that means different and unique and outside of the norm. Like I love that aspect of it too. And so I love that invitation to claim our crazy, claim our weird,
Mhm.
claim our gift of outsiderness. There's a gift
Yes.
in there. And that avatar you just mentioned definitely feels like a champion for all those things. There was also kind of a witchy vibe when you share. I saw like a
Uh,
disheveled witch, but like,
yeah.
just like casting these fabulous spells, but very just like rah rah
That's her and me in a nutshell.
rah.
It's like the messier, the better. I mean, I have a lot of
Mm,
Sagittarius energy in me, which is, to me, in my understanding of what that means, is just
mm,
very embracing the unpredictable.
mm,
Most people, um, in the Muggle world, I'm kind of a Harry Potter fan, and
mm-hmm,
so it, uh, and I would say most humans, that there is a part of all of us that
mm-hmm,
really likes linearity, predictability. We want to know what's coming. And my alter ego, the part of me that is the two spirit,
mm-hmm,
the witchy, and I claim that word two spirit as the
mm-hmm,
indigenous do, even though I'm not indigenous by blood, I am by training and by my soul.
mm-hmm,
Uh, I like to be surprised. I tell the universe, I tell spirit, I'm like, hey,
mm,
surprise me today. Make me laugh at myself. And that
mm,
is the persona to me when I'm in my true power. And I think for that goes for all of us when we can really be let go and surrender the control and the need
mm.
to know what's coming next. That's where all the magic and the witchy glitter and glitter and shimmers
Oh, I love
lie.
that so much. And that just gave me goosebumps to hear that invitation for the universe to surprise me. I feel like there is such a trend for manifesting to be so specific and direct and like commanding the universe. Like, I
Mm,
want this and I want it at this time and I want it in this way and give it to me now, universe. Give it to me
yeah,
now, spirit, and yeah, I understand that there is some value in specificity and in being, I get it, but it does cut us off from this possibility of surprise and surrender. And it, in some ways, creates this idea that we know better than what spirit knows, right? Like
uh,
we know what's better for us than what spirit knows. So I
yeah.
love that reframe in asking the universe to surprise me. Yeah.
We don't have a clue. I mean, in
Mm,
all of my classes with Empath Connection and the Empath Sanctuary, I always it's all about play. It's all about being
hmm
surprised. And I willingly affirm, as my spiritual mentor did, he was a Heyoka shaman from Canada. And Heyoka
mm.
is a Lakota word. It just simply means a sacred clown, somebody who does
Uh-huh.
things backwards. That's moi.
hmm
as well. And I affirm, hey, because of my pea brain, my
Mm.
divine authority guides me, not the pea brain. My
Mm-hmm.
divine authority guides me. And I hear that you have that same appreciation in your energy in what you just shared as well. And I hope that the listeners uh, are asking themselves, how can I surrender my pea brain's idea of
Mm.
what should be
Mm-hmm.
and accept what
Mm-hmm.
is and
Mm-hmm.
what will be when I surrender to, and I use this phrase a lot in my work, divine will.
Mm.
Because we
Yes.
have, do we not, parents, our true loving parents are our spirit guides, our
Mm.
ancestors who have crossed over and are still with
Mm-hmm.
us. They haven't left. They're here in our hearts and they're still helping us. In my
Mm-hmm.
understanding, that's what our loved ones do. And even the
Mm.
ones that we had karma with here on earth, uh, people that we had trouble with as a medium,
Mm.
I get those spirits coming in, and I see. Uh, Thankfully, I get that gift every time I do a
Mm.
mediumship session to be able to see from the perspective of the other side that once we transition, they have just as much as need as we do to help clear karma, and they often will take the role of those people that we had trouble with,
Mm.
maybe a parent that rejected us for being queer,
Mm-hmm.
they become our biggest champion once they lose their
Mm.
bodies.
Mm. They're not like on the other side trying to seek revenge or something. They're
Oh
there to
God, no.
actually continue to support us, but in a way that they couldn't during their time in their earthly bodies because they weren't able to see the clearer truth of what is. And now that they have crossed over, they've got this divine opportunity to support us in a really profound and impactful way. And when we are able to receive that, that comes from this place of surrender, that comes from this invitation to be surprised. It's when we are so stuck in, like you said, our pea brain minds, and we think we know best, and we think we know exactly how it's supposed to go, that we cut ourselves off from that divine aid, from that support from the other side. Hmm. Yeah, that's so juicy.
You know, it is juicy, and to me, it's a question of as queer men, queer people, and just humans in general. This applies to all of us,
Mm.
and in particularly those of us that identify as queer, because we have a little extra. We have a little extra,
Hmm.
je ne sais quoi, a little
Hmm. Extra
fairy
glitter and
dust.
glimmer.
We
Yeah.
do, and we're
Hmm.
designed by the universe for that. And
Hmm.
it's how would your life change? I mean, those of you that are listening, if you knew, and maybe you already know this, maybe you already have embraced this, and if so, wonderful, fantastic, because you're modeling for the others. And this is the
Hmm.
following: how would your life change if you knew you were designed? We were designed purposely by the universe to carry balanced masculine, balanced feminine,
Hmm.
and to have the portal of our heart, some people call this a channel from the crown chakra as well, to
Hmm.
be open to the magic that
Hmm.
comes when we are able to surrender the pea brain and ask for energy, help,
Hmm.
guidance, wisdom
Hmm.
from our loved ones in spirit.
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
would your life change if you knew that you were designed to have a clear connection,
Hmm.
an open portal to the spirit world?
Mm. Wow. Yeah, that's deep. And then the other thing that popped up for me is that as an example, our queerness as an example of a time in our lives where many of us, I'd say most of us, thought that being queer was the opposite of a gift, was something that we didn't want, was something that we wanted to reject, was something that we were angry at the universe for bestowing upon us, right? And so had we been able to have what we thought we wanted, right? I don't want to be gay. I want to be straight. I want to be like everybody else. Then we would not have this gift that of queerness, right? Like if I when I look back at the part of me that was really dreading this and really just praying to have a straight, a straight life. It's sad to me, that that was what I thought would be the best path for me when I'm able to see the joy and the invitation of freedom and love and yes, and that divine connection too. Like there's so many gifts that come with our queerness that I'm so grateful for. And thank Goddess I wasn't able to pray it away.
Oh, thank God. Feel so similar when probably a lot of us can relate to this story. You know, when I was 13, I sensed that I was different and I sensed that it was a threat to be different.
Hmm.
Um, and so I turned, like a lot of us do, turned my true persona to spirit persona off to keep
Hmm.
myself safe. And I
Hmm.
did. I never got bullied because I was damn good about making sure that I was invisible.
Hmm.
And it is tragic. And thankfully, it was only really 7, 8 years before I really started to flourish. And what strikes me is that we are heroic. Every
Hmm.
act of coming out as queer, especially at this time in history right now where there's a more of a backlash that we're working our way through and
Hmm.
dissolving,
Hmm.
uh, coming out is an act of heroic. And
Hmm.
when I'm around gay men that are in their 70s and even their 80s that
Hmm.
have just come out, I'm like, oh, yeah, right
Yes.
on, because
Yes.
that is totally heroic, is it
Hmm.
not?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's funny. I was just speaking with someone an hour ago who came out at 48, and often with folks who come out later in life, there is a lot of regret that they live with, oh man, all those years. And the truth is that they have saved themselves so many years that they are now able to live in their truth, right? And there's countless stories of people who go to their grave never coming out, right? Who go to their grave never tapping into the truth of who they are. I mean, besides queer people, there's a ton of straight people who just never tap into the truth of who they are because they're
Mm.
so caught in the game of conforming and of being the person that society expects them to be. So anyone who comes into the truth of who they are and finds the courage to express that at any point during their time on this earthly planet is doing a beautiful blessing to their karmic path and getting to enjoy the fabulous rewards of that. And it's unique and extraordinary in some ways.
Yeah, I like equations. I was always very
Mm.
good at math. I recognize a lot of us don't like math, and maybe we're
Yeah. Hmm.
traumatized by it. But
That's
have an
funny.
equation in terms of
Mm.
the journey that we're all on. So,
Mm.
what is self-love is the question, right? How
Hmm.
do we love ourselves, warts and all,
Hmm.
even more, even more? So,
Mm.
once we accept that we're gay and we accept ourselves, and then when we add this, and this is where a lot of
Mm.
us, thankfully, are engaged in this second step of self love,
Hmm.
acceptance plus sharing and
Hmm.
expressing
Hmm.
ourselves, warts and
Hmm.
all, equals self love. So, in my view,
Yes.
self love, there's an extra piece there. It's not just acceptance, it's
Hmm.
acceptance plus willingness to dip
Hmm.
our toes a little bit outside of our comfort zone, maybe for some
Hmm.
of us, and to share. So, my question for all of us is, and this is a question that we will be asking for the rest of our lives,
Mm.
how can I share more of myself
Hmm.
authentically right now at this moment in
Hmm.
time? What is that
Hmm.
answer? I'm curious, what would be the answer for you,
How
Will?
can I share it more?
Yeah, how
Well,
can you?
the first thing that comes to mind, though, honestly, and this isn't a plug for my retreats, but I know we both hold these retreats, but it just reminds me of the value of retreats, right? Because I work with these people who have gone to years and years and years of therapy where it's just them and often their computer screen on Zoom,
Mm.
just talking about themselves and what they're going through. And I think therapy is fabulous and important, but I don't think it gets us that added piece. It helps us get to the place of acceptance, but it doesn't necessarily create the opportunity, the safe space for that shared self-expression. And so, yeah, what was coming up for me as you were talking about it was how valuable the group retreats are for that
Mm.
experience of
Oh,
accepting self and then having a safe space to share that self and to get that special added piece that brings one into more self-love.
that is so beautiful what you just said. And I would add
Hmm.
that the 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 sharing done in community is
Hmm.
priceless. It is
Hmm.
gold. And in this era that we're in, we're moving into an energy of Aquarius, the Aquarian
Hmm.
age. And maybe you understand what that is, maybe you don't. It simply means we're coming together as a community and
Hmm.
recognizing our similarities, that we're all one,
Hmm.
straight, gay, whatever, we're all
Hmm.
one. And we're the community and the connection that comes from community,
Hmm.
because we do amplify each other's light. We
Hmm.
don't amplify each other's shadow. We, in your retreats, in my
Hmm.
retreats, I do one here in Northern California,
Hmm.
we amplify each other's light. And to have our light amplified by a group
Hmm.
of 6, 8, 10, 12, 20,
Hmm.
however many people, that is worth its weight in gold.
Hmm.
Connection and community are the
Hmm.
new currencies
Hmm.
for this new age that we're in
Hmm.
Aquarius.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that just gave me goosebumps again. So, yeah, so my answer besides just retreats is community. Yeah, absolutely. That's what it comes down to is community and safe community, community that celebrates
Mm.
us, and it's different. It's like I can post vulnerably on, the social medias and yeah, there's some validation when I get comments and likes and whatever, but it does not equal the same medicine that happens when I share within whatever community it is, whether it's this ecstatic dance community I'm connected to here in San Diego, or my business networking community, or my gay coaches community. Like it's really really a unique medicine that comes from sharing with community that celebrates us. Yeah, thank you.
And I would add also that for many of us, anxiety, the word anxiety, it means many different things for depending on who we are. For some of us, we have physical anxiety, heart racing.
Mm,
For some of us, it's overthinking.
hmm.
Whatever anxiety, whatever form might be present in your life, I have found magically melts away when we connect and are witnessed
Mm,
and held authentically by community, by others. Anxiety, in my view and
hmm.
experience, is largely, not 100%, largely
Hmm.
connected to feeling isolated, to
Hmm.
feeling separate, to not
Hmm.
having connection to our highest self, and not
Hmm.
having connection to the medicine that other people bring us.
Hmm.
So, our question that we're all asking is, how can I connect even more to
Hmm.
A, my greatest, most authentic, truest, highest self, whatever
Hmm.
word you use, and B, more to others? And when we
Hmm.
ask that question from a place of humility, the answer is it will magically melt away a lot of our challenges, blocks, and including the anxiety that some of us
Hmm.
might feel, that we oftentimes maladaptively deal with through addictions,
Hmm.
drugs, alcohol, sex
Hmm.
addiction, whatever, that it's being witnessed in a place of light and love that
Hmm.
allows us to drop the anxiety, drop the addictions.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as you're sharing that, I'm present to how beneficial it is to our nervous system to feel that sense of connection, that connection to self, that connection to spirit, source, God, whatever you want to call it, that connection to others. It's what was coming through for me is like it's a feeling of being held. You know,
Yeah.
it's like a opportunity to just melt and know that you are held by all this support that's around you. And the nervous system loves that, right? It's like the nervous
Yeah.
system's able to just like let go and receive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And when we receive our true nature, which is that,
Mm.
two-spirited nature. We were before the influence of uh, unhealthy shadow Christianity, in which we
Hmm.
were told, we as queer we were uh, meant to felt shame. The indigenous lifted us up, rightfully so, as the
Mm.
oracles, the leaders, the priests, if you will. They don't use that word, but the medicine people in the
Hmm.
community, because we've been designed to have a little bit of that extra spiritual juju, a little bit of extra wisdom, a
Hmm.
little bit extra unconditional love contained in
Mm.
who we are. And we were celebrated back in the day before we were told that we were meant to be shamed. We were celebrated and lifted up as
Hmm.
the leaders. And so my job working with gay men is
Hmm.
to help you remember who you really fucking are.
Hmm.
Not, and I
Yes.
say that with emphasis out of
Hmm.
love, because who you really are is a divine, brilliant, amazing being of light. And
Hmm.
our only job is to remember
Hmm.
that.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. So many men that I see, gay men, queer men that go on the healing path, inevitably they get to a place where they're like, "Oh, I feel like I'm called to be helping others even. Like
Mm,
I'm feeling like this is part of who I am, that this connection to spirit, that these gifts are meant to come through." And it's like, yes, it's not just about us healing the shame or the wounds. It's about us getting you to this place of seeing the truth of who you are, which, yes, as queer folks, I'd say involves these gifts, these spiritual gifts that, as you
yeah,
mentioned, used to be so clear to the tribes, to the rest of the community. And now
yeah.
it's our job to like bring that back out of the shadow.
To bring it back out of the shadow and model it for others.
Mm,
And
mm,
yes, once we get to that place of self-acceptance, then we
yeah.
can really go to town and change
Mm,
the world, so to speak, simply by being our authentic self. So let me
yes.
tell you a funny story.
Yes, please.
I always tell people, like, there's no such thing as TMI with me. Like,
Mm,
I'm very open, I'm very honest about my flaws, my light, my cuckoo-ness, like
mhm.
all of this. So I tell my parents what I do. I'm a channel for the Christ consciousness. Now, when
Mhm.
I say that, I don't mean Jesus. I mean
Mhm.
the divine. And my understanding of what the divine is unconditional love.
Mhm.
That you cannot fuck up. You cannot do it wrong. You can kill a million people and you'll still be on the other side. Granted, you'll have some lessons to learn over there
Mhm.
to bring you up, but you absolutely cannot do anything wrong, and you are not judged by the divine. We are never judged by the divine. We only judge ourselves. So
Mhm.
I tell this to my parents, and I tell them, my mom asks, "Oh, what is it that you do again?" And over the years, I just keep
Mhm.
reinforcing, yes, I'm a channel. I work with spirit. I'm a medium.
Mhm.
I talk to dead people. You know,
Mhm.
I hang out with my community down in San Diego, once or twice a year, in Sedona, a couple of times a year up here where I live in Northern California, Marin County. And so over the years, I have just told them more and more about what I do. And my parents are both Christian.
Mhm.
And initially, they were very, very skeptical about spirit, not understanding it, still kind of tethered to their Bible based Christianity. Well, over the years, since I have told them 4 years ago when the pandemic started that I'm actually a channel for the Christ consciousness, that
Mhm.
energy of that specific avatar, and that's the energy I work with in my sessions. My dad
Mhm.
and mom are both like, "Oh, what did you learn? What can tell me about what you learned? Tell me about what you're up to." And so they're not only are they more inquisitive because of
Mhm.
my openness, they told me a
Yeah.
hilarious story the other day. They're like, my dad was like, I was on a phone call with him, and he calls my mom Babes. He's like, Babes, you think we should tell Michael about how he was conceived? And, and I was like, ooh, this is going to be a great story. So they told me a hilarious story. My dad was in a full body cast while I was conceived. We had laughter, we had fun.
Wow.
And I was like, thank you for modeling openness, transparency,
Mm-hmm.
authenticity, and truth because it is medicine for me
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's medicine for all of us. So that is
Mm.
the kind of authenticity and truth that I think we're all moving into.
Oh my gosh, I love that story so much. And it's one of those pieces that, yeah, it's like I love the path of self-discovery and I love finding out these pieces of myself, whatever they might be, that might give me just a little new hint into how I am and why I am and who I am, right? And so I
Mhm.
don't know if there's some clue or some hint around your karmic path, your unique expression of consciousness that is hidden or that is implicit within your dad being in a full body cast when you were conceived. I feel like there's probably some magic there, you know? That's so cool.
And it was the magic, yes, and it brought us both closer.
I love
And so
that.
now,
Mm,
ever since that, that was a couple months ago, they've
mm,
just been both very, very honest.
mm,
And what I take from that is the more honest that I am with others, it allows others to be unleashed. And for all of us, the
mm-hmm,
more honest that we can be with these types of conversations that you
mm-hmm,
have on your podcast and that we're having
mm,
today, oh, this is how we give permission to
mm-hmm,
all of us, especially to gay men
mm,
uh, and queer people, to be feel free and to have that permission slip because really
mm-hmm,
that's all that we need is we just need that permission slip and the permission slip can get activated by hearing a story from me or from
mm-hmm,
you, Will,
mm-hmm,
or whoever. When it
mm-hmm,
really comes down to it, that permission slip must be a decision that
mm,
often it involves courage on our
mm-hmm,
parts because that
mm-hmm,
safety is an inside job.
mm-hmm,
It's not an external job. It's an
mm,
inside job. And we must make that decision. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell
mm-hmm.
the truth here
Yeah.
with the risk knowing that I may be judged.
Yes.
And
Yes.
once we can make that declaration, I'm okay with being judged, guess what
Mm-hmm.
happens to the judgment? We don't get judged anymore. We don't
Yeah.
attract people that will judge us into
Yeah.
our lives because it's the universe always mirrors our internal state. And if we feel
Mm.
safe enough internally to be okay and to share
Mm.
all of us, then we don't attract judgment
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
largely into
if
our
judgment happens, it doesn't impact us because we are
right.
in that direct relationship with truth. So you started mentioning your mediumship, and I'd love for you to share with the listeners a little bit more about what that means and maybe a little bit about how you came into that gift, how you came to discover that
Mm,
that was something that you are capable of and wanting to offer.
yeah. Yeah. So I was 17 years old and I was laying down on taking a nap on my sister's bed, and I was just, I spent a lot of time in my sister's room, and all of a sudden I was transported into this other realm where I just
Mm.
knew. I felt like I was receiving and knowing that my aunt was going to be pregnant and she was considered infertile.
Mm.
I went and told my mom immediately, and the next day my aunt called and said she was pregnant with the baby boy, just
Wow.
like I had seen. That was mind blowing to me. It was like I must figure out how did this happen. So it set
Wow.
me on a path to psychology and then
Mm.
counseling, and then ultimately working with Lakota tribes in 2003. And I've been
Mm.
doing that for the last 20 years or so. And I
Mm.
just have an endless curiosity. And so throughout my life, like a lot of us, I just keep asking the spirit world, like, okay, show me more.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know a little bit without being traumatized by
Mm.
seeing too much, because that has
Mm.
happened to some of us, including myself, where
Mm.
I did see too much and it felt traumatizing. But my
Mm.
question is, show me a little bit more. And asking that question
Mm.
throughout my life, I've gotten that glimpse. And in the last 2 to 3 years, is when the mediumship has been more of a professional focus. It was
Wow.
usually in the background. So when I do sessions, I contact your my clients' higher selves,
Mm.
soul, spirit guides, and spirit team. And then
Mhm.
I'm clairaudient, so I hear words, I hear them
Mhm.
speak in sentences, I can hear spirits on the other side speaking to me.
Mhm.
And by it takes it's a huge commitment on my part because there are certain things that I can't do when I work. I pledge I tell people I'm married to the divine,
Mm.
and I got to keep my vibration high. I love Doritos. I can't eat Doritos. I was like, I love
Mm.
pizza. I can't eat pizza. Got to keep
Mm.
the vibration high. Semen
Mm.
retention often sometimes as well
Mm.
to it is an underutilized um, way to
Mhm.
build our spiritual energy. So if you're someone
Mm.
who has been wanting to have psychic experiences, I invite you
Mm.
to explore some of my classes and it just explore the whole concept of like semen retention as a way,
Mhm. Mhm.
pledging to hold that in for a week, 2 weeks.
Mhm.
I can tell you that you will have a lot of extra energy and
Mhm.
often you will have psychic experiences as a result of that, especially if that's your intention in doing
Mhm.
so. So that
Mhm.
is a very long-winded answer
Well, I
to
love that
explore a
you went
little bit
into
of my
that. Yeah,
journey.
that's a fun little invitation. The semen retention has been a practice that I go in and out of. I often like to use the cycles of the moon. So I'll,
Mm.
start at a new moon and then, release at a full moon. Over the pandemic, I did a 3 month semen retention,
Oh
which
my
was
gosh, wow.
pretty phenomenal. Yeah, pretty
What
wild.
did you experience with that?
Like
Like,
you mentioned, a lot of energy, a lot of creative energy, a lot of energy of just expression, a lot of expressive energy.
uh,
And then the the result, so the sort of final moment was just a very, very spiritual
mm,
experience of connecting to the oneness of all. It happened at the ocean at a place where
wow.
the waves like crash up against the cliffs, and it was very very amazing.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wow.
Yeah, on a full moon. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it was really wild.
oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that as a very practical way to increase your energy, increase your vibration.
Hmm.
And it does require some I'd say devotion instead of discipline. It's like devotion. It's like
That's a great
I'm
word.
devoting myself to this. And so
Yeah.
this is my intention and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
and sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead
no,
with a
no, I was
note.
just gonna say that I love that word. Thank you
Hmm.
for bringing that energy into the
Hmm.
conversation. Devotion. How can we
Yeah.
be more devoted? How can we, a corollary word that's similar is
Yeah.
committed. How can we
Yeah.
be more devoted? How can we be more committed to elevating our consciousness or our
Hmm.
vibration? Same thing. I love that, what you
Yeah,
just
it
brought in.
feels more like thanks. Yeah, from discipline to devotion, it feels like a choice, like a more like a proactive, like I'm choosing this instead of like I'm restricted. It's like I'm
Mm,
gonna like choose to devote. I'm gonna like this is my my sovereign choice. Um Yeah, so you mentioned you've worked with the Lakota tribe for 20 plus years, was that? I'm curious
hmm.
if you want to share
Yeah.
anything about that. I
Yeah.
love Native American practices, and yeah, I'd love to hear anything you want to share.
wrote about I wrote about my early journey,
Mm,
first few years in my book. It's called The
mm,
Complete Empath Toolkit. It's
nice.
available in paperback. And
Nice.
so I hung out with a shaman named, we called him Bro. I
Okay.
never knew his full name. We just called him Bro, and he called us Bro. He's like, "Hey, Bro." And one day, as we all often did, he told me things about my life that later came true. And one
Wow.
of the things that he said is, "It's like, bro, you're gonna live to be 140." And I was like, whatever. And he's like, I'm serious. Ever since that time, I believed because he instilled that thought in my head that I will live to be 140. I'm taking care of myself. I can see it happen. The other thing
Wow.
that he
Wow.
told me when I pledged, this was the moment where everything changed. I was a mess. I was suicidal in 2003. I didn't want to be on the planet. I thought, like a lot of us do, erroneously, by the way, that my true home was in the spirit world.
Mm,
And those of us that have had past lives where we were priests or shamans or medicine people like
mm,
myself, you might be relating to that. Like, oh, it just feels so natural to be in the
mm,
world of spirit. Well, what he told me changed my life. He's like, are you ready to commit? And he used that word. And
mm,
I'm like, well, commit to what? And then he told me, he's like, you're being initiated. This is the moment where you're pledging your life to the divine, to
mm,
the people, as he said. Uh, and I said, okay, I can do that. And so one of the things he mentioned, and I thought I didn't understand when at the time what this meant. He said, you will always have a horse.
mm,
And I was like, what does that mean?
mm,
He wouldn't tell me. He was Heyoka. He's like, he didn't give me the answer. He, like a lot of good spiritual teachers, know that the wisdom is inside me and I needed to take the journey rather than
mm,
have him tell me what that meant. Over time, I can see that what he meant
mm,
now is that when we, and this goes for everyone, this is not just medicine people or healing practitioners, it's all of us.
mm,
When we pledge and raise our hands and say, I want to do a little extra, I want to
mm,
commit to my growth, however that may manifest. Maybe it's taking a class, maybe it's signing up for your retreat will,
mm,
whatever it is, when we raise our hands and say, I'm going to go the extra mile, what he meant by you'll always have a horse is you're always going to have a vehicle to abundance and you will
mm,
receive abundance is what that horse represents. You
mm,
will always have abundance. You will always have a car. You will always have
mhm,
a vehicle to take you to your next step. So it's
mhm,
an important piece of the law of attraction and manifesting that we talk about in our Empath Sanctuary community that when we pledge to do a little bit extra, and I
mm,
help people define what that is for them,
mm,
then guess what happens in return? Guess it's like a bartering co-creative
mm.
relationship. We say, okay, I'm going to do a little extra. You're going to get your version of what a horse is for you. Maybe it's a
Yes.
relationship, soul level friendships, better physical health, more
Mhm.
money, whatever it
The
is,
blessings come in. The
they
blessings
come in.
come raining in. I love that. Yeah, I love that. I love it as a horse because it's like the horse helps you on the path. You could walk carrying all your stuff, but a horse is just the perfect thing to help, a perfect ally to help us move on our path in a good
Yes.
way. Yeah, that's so
Yes.
beautiful.
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And so you just mentioned the empath community. I'd love for you to share. I don't think I've actually had anyone speak at all on this podcast about empaths in general. So if you could share with listeners how one might identify if they're curious, if they are an empath, what that means, just to start and then share more about your community.
All right. Fantastic question. Thank you for asking it
Mm,
because most gay men, queer men, however you identify, you are very likely an empath. You're
mm,
designed to be extra sensitive, and this is what an empath is, a
mm,
person who mirrors whatever energy is around you, including
mhm,
mirroring, perceiving, noticing, and feeling the energy, emotional energy of other people
mm,
in your own experience. So if you walk into a room and ever had the experience of just intuitively sensing, like, what happened in this room? People are a little tense here, and maybe your heart is beating a little faster, and you're wondering, well, why the hell is my heart beating faster? That's the one of the very common experiences of an empath.
mm,
The other is looking someone into their eyes and either feeling elevated
mm,
or drained.
mm,
If the other person is drained, an empath will mirror that because that's what we do. We merge very easily with other people
mhm,
and we feel other people in our bodies, in our consciousnesses,
mm,
we mistakenly believe that because we can feel another person's shadow or wounds, or even physical or emotional pain, we think that that's us. So the journey of an empath is to, and what I do is I help people discern what's yours, what's not
Mm.
yours, and how, more importantly, how can you stay centered in your own juicy
Mm-hmm.
energy
Mm-hmm.
and not be drained, overwhelmed, tired, fatigued, exhausted
Mm.
because you're overstimulated by feeling other people to a degree that where it feels like it's too much.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. Any,
And
yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, and my community is called Empath Connection.
Yeah,
It's a fairly large online community, and I've got like a gazillion classes, eight,
nice.
9 different classes that I run throughout the year. Just check out empathconnection.com and make sure you sign up for a mailing list. I send out weekly inspirational
Mm.
messages to the community.
Nice. I love that. Like that's such a great resource for folks to help them decipher if they are an empath, and if so, how can they be in relationship with that part of themselves in a good way. And so you mentioned that there are strategies or tools for protecting one's energy. I know, that it'd be of service to folks to do one of the courses, but any quick cliff notes on that? What is helpful for people?
Learn to say no
Yeah.
because we're empaths and in particular queer empaths can
Hmm.
be people pleasers,
Oh yeah.
and
I'm
that's
in
how.
recovery for sure.
Are you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for
I,
sure.
I I feel like I have recovered, and I know myself
Hmm.
very well. I'm very good about my boundaries,
Hmm.
and that is the divine B word, really, is
Hmm.
boundaries. So that's the cliff notes there is if you're
Hmm.
feeling tired or drained or exhausted, it's very likely because you've been spreading yourself too thin and just simply saying yes to external
Hmm.
demands or asks on your time. And the moment we say no,
Hmm.
everything changes. And then that's how we feel more of our energy and disengage, say no out of love and yes to ourselves.
I love that. It's funny. It just sparked a memory of Kater Sparks, our mutual friend for the Gay Coaches Conference.
Hmm.
He had witnessed you set a boundary in a really beautiful way,
I
and he
told you about that.
yeah, he brought it up. He was just like,
That's
I was so
hilarious.
impressed with Michael. And I was like, oh, yeah. And that actually, that piece of the conversation reminded me, I was like, oh, I need to have him on my podcast. So I love
Someone told me, they said, I was part of the leadership team at Easton Mountain,
mhm,
which you used to be the director of.
yeah,
And so was part of the faculty, and someone on our team had
mhm,
said, would you like to, would you like me to tell you about the 4 directions? I'm like, no. And then he said, well, you're likely going to get criticized for that. And I said, no, I am not going to get criticized. I am not calling this in. Those were the exact words. I remember the moment.
hmm,
And it was stopping it right then and
mhm.
there. And he was
Amazing.
speechless. And I went on my merry way. And
Yeah.
like the effect that it had on the people around me, it was like a bomb dropping, but a good
Mm,
bomb, because
mm,
other people told me I was really impressed by that. And
mm,
that's the kind of firm energy when we connect intentionally to nature and to
mhm,
the divine through nature and quiet our
mhm,
minds, then we don't get confused and mix signals, and we don't say
mm,
yes when we
mhm,
really mean no. We say
mhm,
no when we're meant to say no and we mean it.
mm.
And yeah, it's 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 knowing ourselves comes first, and then that allows us the confidence
Yes.
to say no and mean
To
it.
say no and be firm in our no, and knowing ourselves piece feels so important because and correct me if I'm projecting this, but it's knowing that you don't have a malicious or negative intention when you're placing that no. You're not trying to
No,
say no, you're a terrible person, how dare you. It's like it has nothing to do with the other person. It's
right.
just being secure in yourself.
Exactly. And
Hmm.
it's done out of love
Yes.
for all involved, and not
Yes.
just myself. When I say
Mm.
no, it it helps everyone.
Mm-hmm.
When I mean no and I say no and I'm
Mm-hmm.
aligned with my truth, it helps
Mm-hmm.
me and it helps the other person or the other party as well, so that
Mm-hmm.
there's not unclear or mixed
Mm-hmm.
messages, which often is the case in dating relationships in
Mm-hmm.
particular, especially in the early stages of dating.
Yes, yes, thank you. So it's funny that that memory popped into my head, and I'm reminded that you had mentioned something in my notes from you about memories, and this probably doesn't apply to
Yeah.
that random memory, but memories being these messages from spirit. Anything you want to share around the magic of memories?
Okay. Think of a memory, and this I'm speaking to the all right now, those of you that
Okay,
are
yeah, yeah,
listening.
yeah.
Think of a time, it's likely happened in the last few days
Mm,
or the last week
mm-hmm,
recently,
mm-hmm,
where a random memory has popped into your head
mm,
and you gave it no, you didn't pay any attention to it. Well, here's a
mm,
short story which will illuminate why memories are messengers.
mm,
So a few days ago, I had this memory pop in just out of nowhere of
mm,
me being at St. John's University as an 18-year-old freshman,
mm,
and someone had asked me on the very first day that I was there. I was feeling very unsafe. I'm like, what the hell's going on? They asked me, would you like to go to this party? And I got very scared and
mm,
I said no. And then I was that so fast forward to now, a few days ago,
mm,
I told the divine, I'm like, this memory just popped up. And so I told my spirit guides, I'm like, hey, I I regret that. I wish I would have said yes.
mm.
And so then what happened? The very next morning, I was presented with a invitation,
Mm,
an important one, and I was trying to make a decision. And my initial reaction was, no, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to take that risk. Guess
mm,
what happened? That memory of being at St. John's and being invited to that party, it just are my spirit guides, and this is what they do to all of us. They
mm,
send us that memory for a reason. So I didn't
mm,
create this memory. It came to me. I received it as a
mm,
reminder. Hey, Michael, you told us that you regretted this. We're now
mm,
sending you this memory so you can choose. Do you really want to say no? As soon as I
mm,
got that memory, I knew what my guides were trying to do. They were inviting me to make a different choice and say yes to this invitation, which I
mm.
did. And I'm
Yes.
like, thank God, because now
Mm,
I will not. If I had said no to this current invitation, I would have
hmm.
regretted it.
Amazing. Oh, I love that so much. I love that because it's true that these things that happen in our lives, they are always full of lessons.
Yep.
So many lessons. There's so many
Yep.
lessons in everything that happens. And so there's a lot of lessons to keep track of, right? And so when these memories pop up, they can bring top of mind a lesson that might be important for you to have top of mind. And yeah, what a beautiful invitation for folks to bring some more attention and awareness to those moments and utilize them. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Ah,
Yeah, I'm aware that it's about time to wrap up. I also want to say because we jumped so straight into the conversation because it was juicy from the start, I never shared my drag persona, which I would
oh yeah.
say is I would say today is like I'm feeling, what did you say the sacred clown? What is the name for that again?
It's Heyoka is
Hey
the word.
Yoka, yeah, there's something I'm feeling into like a clown, a little bit of clown energy, definitely like
Mm.
bright colors and just like I don't know, I'm seeing myself with a lollipop for some reason, and I'm just
Ah,
like it's like enjoying the sweetness of this lollipop as I hang out with my disheveled crazy cuckoo bananas witch friend, just like two pals like talking spirit, talking woo woo, and licking my lollipop. That's what I'm
I
present to.
love that. Yes, and that's what that has felt like for me too. Like, yes,
Mm,
it feels very much like that. Yes, thank you
yeah.
for that.
Yeah. Thank you for all of this. And yeah, if any final messages that you feel called to share with listeners, this has been such a delight, such a delightful lollipop convo.
The only thing that comes to mind is because of the complexity of modern life, we all have
Mm,
responsibilities, families. Take a moment tonight, go outside before you go to bed
Mm,
and just look up at the sky. Look at the natural surroundings around you, in particular the stars, if you
mm,
can see them,
mm.
and just breathe that energy of the cosmic star dust into your lungs
Mm.
intentionally and take that with you into the dream state, into your bedtime.
Yes, yes, yes. What a beautiful invitation. Thank you so much, Michael. This has been a total joy.
Thank you, Will.